My story's title is The Goatherd and the Wild Goats. Once upon a time, there lived a goatherd. He had goats. One day, he was feeding his goats. When he was feeding his goats, it was starting to rain. So, the goatherd went a little, there was a forest, so he went a little deeper in the forest. When he was a little bit deeper in the forest, in a few minutes he found a cave. So the goatherd went with his goats in the cave. When he went with his goats in the cave, he thought, does somebody live here? So he thought he'll put his goats near the outside of the forest, so it will be safe for the goats. So the goatherd went a little bit deeper. When he went deeper, he found wild goats. He was so surprised. So he went a little bit slow and came near a wild goat. When he went near a wild goat, he touched it. The wild goat did nothing to him, to the goatherd. So the goatherd thought, if the wild goats did nothing to him, what will they do to the goats? So the goatherd brought his goats to the wild goats. When he brought the goats to the wild goats, the wild goats saw the goats and did nothing to them. So the goatherd was so surprised. How? So the goatherd was so curious. How? So he thought, his goats are the useless goats in the world. And then he thought the wild goats are the best in the world. So the rain stopped in a few minutes, and instead he was not feeding his goats, he was feeding the wild goats. The goatherd was feeding the wild goats, so because I told you that the goatherd said the goats I have are the useless and the wild goats are the best. So now the goatherd was feeding the wild goats. So now when the goatherd was done feeding the wild goats, in a few minutes the goatherd got asleep. He got fast asleep. So when he slept, in few minutes he waked up of the noise of the wild goats. When he waked up, he saw his goats cry, his old goats starving for food. The goats were crying. The goatherd was ashamed of himself. What should I do? What should I do? He said to his mind, the goatherd. So he thought, I will feed my old goats and live happily with them. And I learned a lesson. So now the goatherd feeded well to his goats, and then he lived happily with his goats and never ever distracted with his own goats. They are the best in the world, he said in his mind. The end.